MP3 files don't exist, at least not in the way most normal files do. While most normal files start out with some sort of header which contains important information such as what is this file type, how is the data encoded, MP3 just has a bunch of frames in it. This is because MP3 never actually was meant to be a file type, rather it was developed as a streaming format first and foremost, and to be used for digital TV broadcasting instead. As a result, MP3 files are more like live streams frozen in time instead of actual files. This has some interesting consequences. For one, it's actually quite difficult to tell whether or not what you're looking at is an MP3 file. Whereas normal files usually have a file signature as the very first thing in the header, MP3 can't, as it doesn't have a header. The individual MP3 frames do have a header, but that doesn't offer much in terms of identification. The best you're getting is 11 ones in binary, which is merely a sync word and as text translates into some sort of yo. However, most MP3 files don't actually start with a frame, but instead with an ID3 tag, which is an unofficial standard to provide metadata such as artist or cover art. This tag may be put at the start of the file, or at the end, or indeed anywhere within the file really. Additionally, the presence of an ID3 tag doesn't automatically mean what you're looking at is an MP3, as file formats such as WAV and OGG also sometimes use them. This has some real-world consequences too. If you're downloading an MP3 file of some semi-shady YouTube to MP3 converter, you may not be getting an actual MP3 file at all. Instead, the site may give you whatever YouTube happens to use internally, such as Opus or AAC. If the program you're trying to open the file with then assumes MP3 because the .mp3 suggests so, it will run into trouble. This is one of the more common issues I've seen in my time working on Audacity. Another consequence is that MP3s can change their structure every frame, which is about every 25 milliseconds. This means that a file can start out as mono, but change to stereo midway through, or change sample rate, or bitrate, or even whether it's using the MP3 or the more simple MP2 encoding for the next frame. This sounds like it wouldn't be done in practice, but actually is the primary method behind VBR, which can be used to compress MP3 files even further without losing quality. And because of all this, it's actually quite difficult to determine an MP3 file's length. You could attempt to load the entire file at once, but remember that MP3 really is a streaming format, so you may be trying to find the end of a still ongoing live stream. So what most media players do instead is to look at the first couple of frames, the file size, and then assume that the frame size stays constant throughout the entire file. And while this usually works out well enough, it also is very easy to break. If you create a file that's half noise, half silence, and attempt to play it in VLC or something similar, it will report back as being much shorter than it actually is, as silence compacts much more tightly than noise. And if you try to skip towards the halfway point in the audio, you'll actually skip towards the halfway point in the data, which in this case would be roughly at the quarter of the audio length. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more interesting things to discuss about MP3 in the future, which I'm linking here. In the meantime, my name is Wattenberg. If you liked the video, give it a like, and I hope to see you soon.